Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we can now continue. At this point, we are ready to explore the changing meaning of work through history. Just a minute. Yeah. Now, as I wrote here, let's see. Let me know how many I have joined so far. Let's see. Okay, everybody's here. Okay, good. Everybody's here. Not everybody, but majority. Now, throughout history, we have witnessed how I would say the definition of work. So the definition of work, or how different groups perceive work, have evolved a lot, have changed a lot. So we're going to look at that from different angle. From the Greeks, we're going to examine what work or job means for the Greeks, ancient Greek, I believe. For the Hebrews, ancient Hebrew, early Christians, later Christians. When I say later Christians, I mean when Christianity started to change during the era of Renaissance, Reformation, and the Industrial Revolution. The Protestants, the capitalists, and the socialists. We're going to look at how they see work. Okay, starting from the Greeks. The Greeks scorn work. They don't like work. I mean, I'm talking about the ancient Greek. So to them, work is a cause. So they have this unique name for work. They call it pronos. Pronos, which have the root came from the Latin word poeno, meaning sorrow. So the ancient Greeks, they don't like work, period. So they see it as a cause. So Homer is a very popular poet in ancient Greek. According to him, the gods hated mankind, and out of malice, condemned human beings to work. That was what he wrote in those days. So the Hellens, when I say the Hellens, I mean the Greeks, developed a slave-based economy. And then every work that they do are done by their slaves, or what they call the inferior people. Inferior people. See? So they have a slave-based economy where all type of work are done by their slaves, who they call the inferior people, because they don't like work. So in general, the Greek and also the Romans viewed work as painful necessity. That was how they see work in those days, not the current Greeks. I'm talking of the ancient Greeks. Okay. Which leads us to the next group, which is the Hebrews. Their viewpoints about work. The ancient Hebrew, not the Hebrews of today, but the ancient one, they see work as a kind of atonement for sin. So to them work is punishment, and they see it as a punishment, as an atonement for sin. So according to the Hebrews, work is man's burden to pay for the original sin. According to their Talmud, the holy book of the Hebrew is called a Talmud. Sorry, Talmud. I hope I pronounce it right, but that's how it's spelled, Talmud. According to Talmud, if man does not find his food like animals and birds, but must learn it. That is due to sin. Because they are saying, okay, animals they just fruit gatherers. They just move around, see their food, find their food already made, maybe in the tree or in the form of the other animals that they feed on. They just eat. But us, we have to work for it and then make it, prepare it. So therefore, that means we are being punished for some things that we did. That's why we have to work to get what we eat instead of getting it directly, start working for it like the animals do. So that's how they think in those days. But they forget that when we start, they forget that in the past and the beginning, the early man, when I say early man, I mean human beings at the beginning, they are basically fruit gatherers and hunters. So because of that, there was no developed community because you had to move around looking for food, foraging for food. So the early man was basically a savage, almost like a beast. But the moment he realized that some of the fruits that he ate and threw away have started to grow, then he realized that, oh, I can actually grow my own food. That is when agriculture started. And when agriculture started, people now started having settlements. You don't have to move around anymore to look for food. You stay in one place, develop the place. Now the community started to grow, villages, towns, and organized life began. But the Jews in those days, the ancient Jews, don't see it that way. So if we are to go to what they are saying, or what the Greeks were saying, that means we'll be basically savages, the survival of the fittest. I mean, survival of, because somebody might not be physically fit, but can be mentally fit. I mean, in the modern world, it may not be physically fit, but it might be mentally fit. That means you can still make a living, even more than those who are physically fit, if you can develop products that the market wants with your brain power. Okay. So according to the Hebrews, work was atonement and a way to regain lost spirituality. So any work, no matter how slowly, was preferred over idleness. So in their own case, even though they see work as a punishment, they still prefer to do the work instead of being idle. Since when you are doing the work, you are atoning, you are paying for what your sins, and therefore making your life better. Since you don't have, you have less punishment. That's their own viewpoint. They come to work. Okay. Now let's look at the next view. How the early Christians view or perceive work. So early Christians see work as, in fact, they disregard work. They don't like work. According to them, they have the same idea or the same belief about work, the same belief that the Hebrew had. They believe that work is that it's better to work than to be idle, and they place low value on productive enterprise and the accumulation of wealth. If you look at the word of Jesus, of course, Jesus Christ, if you look at the Bible, what he said, no man can serve two masters. So you cannot serve God and mammon. This is God and money. Mammon means money, and you make money by working hard. So if you work, that means you're like, according to the this statement, if you work, that means you are serving money. So it is easier for a camel. This is what Jesus said as well. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. So it's basically making work, making people to see work as bad, so that if you work so hard and get rich, you might have to sacrifice going to heaven. So now that is the view of the early Christian. So essentially, the early Christian thought that the best work is that which least fills man's mind with the desire for profit. So the best work is the work that does not look for profit. Basically, that is what he's saying. Because if you are working to make profit, it distracts your attention from worshiping God. That's what they believe. So to early Christians, work is at its best if has something to do with spirituality. So if the work is not have nothing to do with spirituality, things like praying, fasting, helping the poor, having a loving eyes fixed on a better world after death, thinking of beyond life, then it's not good. That's the way they say it. So the only admission of virtue in work by the early Christian was that it could be a means of charity in providing the need for others. So, but then eventually, this view of work by the Christians changed. Well, it remained unchanged for 1,000 years. So that that time, the dominant attitude towards work during that time was one of disregard and disdain. Now, this is for the early Christians. Now, that's how they perceive work. But the later Christians, Christianity actually value work. Actually, the next 500 years after the era of the early Christians ended, during the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Industrial Revolution, and during the Western societies, the Western society attitude to work changed during the Renaissance, Reformation, and Industrial Revolution. So at that time, which is the beginning of the 16th century, it was a time that Martin Luther proclaimed that all forms of labor have equal value in the eyes of God, and that to carry out God's will was to perform one's vocational duties to the best of one's ability. So the attitude towards work changed during this time. So it became something like that is a gold standard. A Christian should work. So according to Luther, idleness is an unnatural and evil aberration. And to maintain oneself by work is the only way of serving God. So people who work now are perceived as being serving God. Yeah. So by 1536, John Calvin, in 1 minute. Oh, right. Oh, good. John Calvin, in 1536, John Calvin taught a doctrine of predestination that placed only the industrial among the chosen for heaven's grace. So according to this, his doctrine of John Calvin, I think he was the guy that started Calvinism. So according to him, work during this life and for this life was endowed with religious dignity. This is what he said about work. I will read it out exactly the way I wrote it here. Work alone suffices. And to please God, work must not be casual. Now this, now that, now prolonged for the whole day. Tomorrow laid down after an hour. Intermittent, occasional work will not do. So the kind of work that must do is it must be methodical, disciplined, rational, uniform, and hence specialized work. So to select a calling and follow it with all one's conscience is a religious duty. So work now became the later day Christians started seeing work as a religious duty. So with all these teachings, the historical split between religious piety and worldly activity was resolved as work came to be defined as a calling and the religious duty for all men, I mean, for all people. Which looked us to the Protestants. I'm sure you guys must have heard of a concept that is called the Protestant work ethic. So, what the Martin Luther and Calvin taught with respect to work now lead us to what is called the Protestant theology. So, this theology actually gave a kind of approval to worldly achievements, and the Protestant work ethic was born. So other doctrines of the period joined this new religious ethic, and those religious ethic, particularly the Protestant work ethic, helped to establish work as the central tenet of Western society. So we can see that how work have the perception of work have evolved over the years, over the centuries, I would say. So there are a few things we need to know about these different eras. First one is that there are other factors that elevated man's attitude towards work. Some of those factors include we have the Renaissance mission to build, create, and so realize one's potential. So you don't have to people's attitude to life change. They don't have to rely on prayers only now. They want to create, build, and realize their life ambitions. Then the merchants and disregards, or they call the mercantile disregard for unproductive citizens. So the merchants, during the merchant era, people who are not productive, they don't get enough respect from the society. Then the age of enlightenment and the emergence of science also, but it is one of the factors that make that elevated man's attitude towards work. The age of enlightenment and emergence of science. So prior to that, many people believe that diseases were caused by the devil, that it is the devil that caused people to have diseases like scarlet fever, malaria, polio, and the flu. But science came out and proved that was not the case. That actually these sicknesses were caused by small animals that we cannot see. So now all this is upon the factors. Okay, the science proved this, and they can start curing those diseases. So now people they realize that okay, these scientists, they have to work hard to develop those medications that we use to cure this. So that work can't be that bad if they can. It led to the development of cures for disease. So it can't be bad. So people's attitudes started to change. Another factor is the survival of the fittest belief of the social Darwinist. There's a scientist who is called Charles Darwin. Through his research, he now developed a theory about the nature. According to his theory, that those living organisms that are strongest are the ones that will survive, and he was able to prove that. So now people say, okay, if we can survive, if we are strong and work hard, we'll survive. So work can't be that bad. Then of course, when the people started working, and they started, the society started to grow, and the combination of all these factors, including the primacy of work in the socialist societies, like one that was advocated, that came through Karl Marx principles. So now work becomes the gold standard. So by the 20th century, the Protestant ethics, free-willing capitalism, and humanistic socialism have meshed to form an essentially multidisciplinary religion of work. So what we have now is the religion of work. no longer the religion of only prayers and then supernatural. Now we have the religion of work. If you're not working, people will start looking at you as somebody who is evil. So work becomes the religion now. Everybody wants to work. Everything, even you in this class, you are going to this, taking these classes to increase your qualification to get a bigger job, or to increase or to improve your skill to start your own business and then create work. Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So we can now look at a few more things. But before we do that, it is important to realize that the early Christians, especially the Catholics, are told that salvation awaits another life, and in the meantime, blessed are the poor. But in contrast, when the during the era when the Protestant work ethic started to gain roots, then things changed, and they were teaching their churches will offer a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, leading to a blessed life here and now. So, which means that their model involved self-reliance, rugged individualism, thrifts, and hard work. So eventually, the Catholics adopted that principle too. Work is very important, and they no longer see work as evil, but as something that is religious duty. So we can now look at I think this is the last view. We have looked at the Greeks, the Hebrews, the early Christians, later Christians, the Protestants. Look at the capitalists. Look at the socialists, their view as for work. The socialist viewpoint is one of the viewpoint that made work even more acceptable, because the socialists, their principle had to do with work, when workers will be in charge. So spearheaded by Karl Marx, who is known as the father of socialism. Karl Marx believed that, or I would say the socialists believe that work should be the sum total of human rights and duties, and who viewed work as, and they view work as the moral ideal. According to Karl Marx, he says, the modern man, is really the way I wrote it here, the modern man will no longer be the wise man. The modern man will no longer be the ascetic or the citizen, but the worker. So the modern man will be the worker, understood as the producer. So an immense society of free workers, freely associated, administering in common the instrument of work, and endlessly transforming the matter of the world for the greater good of the community. Such is the socialist ideal. So what he's saying here is that the modern man, I mean, when they say man, not during that time, when they say man, they are referring to both man and male and female, human beings in general. That's what they use man to refer to people in general, both man and woman. So the modern man is no longer be the wise man. What they call the wise man in those days are the priests, the pastors, anybody that they believe that have supernatural power. They call the wise man. So the modern man no longer is the wise man, not the ascetic, like people like the monks. But the modern man should be the worker, who is also the producer, because it's the work they apply their skills towards producing goods or services. Yeah. So in other words, the socialist viewpoint, they value work. They don't demonize work. That's the best way to say it. Now we look at the capitalist viewpoint. Now capitalism is based on is built on work. People in a capitalist state, private people own the means of production, and people will come and work for them to produce. So to capitalists, or the capitalism as well, they thought that the importance of productive labor as a moral duty today. So you can see this from the experience of Abraham Lincoln. Now he has his brother who always come to him to borrow money from him. He wasn't really working. He worked sometimes. The brother works sometimes. He doesn't work, so he's always broke. And then each time he's broke, he come to Abraham Lincoln to borrow some money from him. So at a point, Abraham Lincoln became tired of it, and this is what later he wrote to his brother. He said, "Dear Johnston, your request for $80, I do not think it is best to comply with now. At the various times when I have helped you a little, you have said to me, we can get along very, very well now. But in a very short time, I find you in the same difficulty again. Now, this can only happen by some defects in your conduct. You are now in need of some money, some ready money now. So what I propose is that you should go to work, tooth and nail, for somebody who will give you money for it. Now, if you do this, you will soon be out of debt. And what is better, you will have a habit that will keep you from getting in debt again. So if you will but follow my advice, you will find it worth more than 80 times $80 to you. Affectionately, your brother, Lincoln." So he was telling the brother, go and get a job. If you get a job and work, you develop a life pattern, a structure that will make you help you to make money every week. So that means you now develop a mindset of making money, and that is much bigger than $80 times 10. So, and besides, with that habit, you can never be in debt anymore. So basically, he was saying Lincoln believed that helping the brother out this time means kind of enabling him to be lazy, and eventually he will come right back again begging for more money. So he doesn't want to enable him anymore. He wants you to go get a job, and by getting a job and working, you develop a habit of making money. That way, your life will change, and you pay off your debt, and you no longer be in debt anymore. And this is much better than giving 10 times $80 you are asking for. So, bottom line here is that capitalist viewpoint, according to the capitalist viewpoint, working is a moral duty today. So, which leads us to a concept that we called work morale. And we all know what an employee morale is. When the morale is high, employees always put their best to achieve the goal of their organization. So what is employee morale? Well, I know you already know what it means, but you may not know how to put that meaning in words. But you know in your heart, your mind, that morale means something. And when people have high morale, they perform. So what is morale? Well, employee morale measures the motivation of an individual within the workplace. So in other words, it is the amount of satisfaction an employee has with his or her job and its current working condition. So things that being motivated to do your best for your organization is, then we're talking about morale. Being willing to perform best, or to do or follow all the directives of your company is morale. Being willing to sacrifice for your company is morale. Above all, being motivated to go to work, even work extra time to make sure that the company is running right, is employee morale. So even in the military, like you see what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, just like David and Goliath. Ukraine is David, Russia is Goliath. Yet David was able to defeat Goliath even with all its size, and if you compare them physically, they are not a match. Yet was able to defeat it. Now, when Russia tried to invaded Ukraine, many countries, in fact, everybody expected Ukraine to fail within a few days, 4 days, 5 days, because they are not a match. But because of the morale that their leader, Zelensky, was able to instill in them. At the beginning of the war, they were almost fighting Russia with bare hands. Yet, Russia could not take Kyiv. The paratroopers they sent to kill Zelensky and his family, cabinet, they killed all of them off. They could not even land some of their military personnel in the Kyiv airport, because these people were the Ukrainian soldiers were shooting down some of the helicopters they want to use to land their personnel. So Russia could not do anything except destroying the houses of civilians. They couldn't face Ukrainian army in combat. Anyway, I think you get the point. Napoleon declared. Napoleon was a very popular soldier, general in the past. He actually won a lot of wars in the past. So according to him, an army's success depends on its size, training, experience, and morale. And morale is worth more than all of the other factors combined. Morale is very, very important. Morale is what makes a great army. Morale is what makes great employees. Even students, morale is what makes a student to be great. Yeah. You want to pass this class, you put all your efforts, time, not all your time, of course, but appropriate time to complete assignments, and so on and so forth. So morale is very, very important in anything that it has to do with success. There has to be morale there. So according to research findings, positive relationship between employee morale and organizational commitment, job performance, organizational citizenship, behavior, and retention. What he's trying to say here is that there is a positive relationship between employee morale and organizational commitment, job performance, organizational citizenship, behavior, and retention. So in other words, they hire the morale, then they hire the organizational commitment, they hire the job performance, they hire the better the organizational citizenship behavior, and they hire the retention rates. So all these things come with high morale. So now, because either in the Western world or Eastern world socialization, some people have a higher degree of self-discipline and tolerance for tedious labor. So how do we achieve high morale? Well, simplest way or the best way is to get the right person on the right type of job in the first place. So if you want to hire, make sure you hire people who are qualified for that job. They are qualified for that job, and they have, during the interview, you notice that they have a call for that job. So that way, if you are qualified for a job and you have a call, you don't like that job, naturally you want to prove yourself, you have high morale. So as a job aid in doing this, we have a career counseling can be helpful. And to find out what people actually do in a variety of jobs, what salaries and working conditions there are, and what the current job and future job prospects are. You can get this information from the data that is compiled by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think I can have it here. Let me see if I can open it for you. You can explore later on. Let me see. Oh, excuse me. Okay, it's opened it. So it shows different careers, their prospects, and so on and so forth. Let's look at those in the business and financial. So this is the business class. Things like I'll use financial analysts. Okay, you can see how much they make. Their median pay $95,570 per year. That's a median pay. That means half of them make this amount or less, and the other half make this amount or less or more. So the typical entry level education needed is bachelor's degree. And then let's look at the job prospect. It's job outlook. Overall, employment for the financial analyst is projected to grow 9% from 2021 to 2031. Let me go back and pick another. But I know that some of you might want to be in education or healthcare occupations. I can say, okay, let's say things like I want to use the one that is very common, all of home health and personal care aids, with $9,000 per year. That means the median income. That means half of them make this or less, and the other half make this or more. They have the entry level education is high school diploma or equivalent. Job outlook. Employment of home health and personal aid care is projected to grow 25% from 2021 to 2031, much faster than the average for all occupations. So there's going to be high need for them. So you can explore this at your own time. Any question? Any question here?
No.
Okay. All right. I think when you have the time, I will encourage you to finish reading this. They are really high, self-explanatory. Finish them, read the chapter, do your homework, and I will see you guys next week. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Any question before we leave?
No.
All right. See you next week then.